So please welcome Dr. Martin André. He's the CEO at AMP Digital Venture and the Global Head of Products and Innovation at GfK, Timo Thompson. The so-called stage is yours, gentlemen.
Can you imagine? It was the year 2020, and there was no published standard around that would allow you to compare the significance of different digital media, digital offers, based on one and the same consistent database. That is the topic of our talk, and we'll also show you a solution. But let's start with the question, what do we know about digital media? And of course, in the age of big data, we have billions of random facts, often not interconnected. But we would always prefer systematic knowledge. So let's look at a typical touchpoint overview slide. As experts, we know that for each of those touchpoints, we'll have very detailed and thorough analyses and a lot of facts for email, for social media, or for search. And as a provoking example, I would like to take one of the listicles which are so popular among marketeers or agencies here on YouTube, and we'll learn, yes, there's 1.3 billion users of YouTube, there's 300 hours of video material uploaded every minute, and that's impressive. But again, going back to the different touch points, we know that we have such collections of facts on each single channel, each single offer, but we cannot relate them together. And maybe that's one of the most stunning insights also of today, that despite the fact that we have billions of data points available, that we don't have that. And it's even more fascinating if you compare that to the situation of the user. Because for the user, it's not even a topic. The user has a seamless digital experience. She or he, she's just gliding through different offers, and it's not at all a problem. It's a problem for us. Because let's say we wanted to gain that systematic knowledge about what is happening out there. The problem is we would have to look at different tools. We would often not know how is the data aggregated inside the tools. Then we would look at different studies. Each study has a different methodology. We would look at surveys, but the problem with surveys is that then we only have what people say about their usage, and we do not know what really happens in that usage. The difference we all know from purchase intention. They will say they buy it, but in reality, they don't. And even if we put all of that aside, the next problem is, how do we put all of that together? Because each of the single facts and pieces is coming from a completely different source. So let's think about what we would have to do to get to that point where we have that systematic knowledge about what's happening in the digital world. And there's two preconditions, and they're very simple. In order to find out, we would need to have only one data source. Because only if we have only one data source, we'll be able to connect all the pieces and compare them to each other. The second precondition is we would have to have some kind of understanding of the whole of digital traffic, of the whole of usage, of the whole of the digital attention. Because if we don't, we cannot make any assumption about the parts. And I like to show this with a couple of examples. We know that people do many things in the digital world. They write emails, they watch videos, they listen to music, they do gaming, and so on and so on. I don't want to know how many hundreds of emails they write. I want to know what is the relative significance of, let's say, email. What is the share of time that they spend watching videos? What's the share of time they watch other things or they do gaming? Similar thing with offers. Yes, YouTube, the example, it's huge, we all know this, but I would like to know how huge specifically is YouTube. What's the share that YouTube takes from the entire digital attention? And similarly, TikTok or Facebook or WhatsApp and the like. And finally, of course, the same is also true for devices. So how would we measure something like this?
Exactly. What now to do, how to measure, how to derive those figures that Martin described in his intro speech. So we need, of course, many users that we take on the journey where we see what are they doing in the internet. We need to track them in a community approach. What are they doing? What are their impressions they are having? What are the apps that they are using across different devices? And that is the core, to track the users across different devices. And in the end, we receive the total duration. So we see what are they really doing in the internet. And the core of our project is to report on this one KPI, this core KPI, which is total duration. And with that, we get rid of the unsystematic approach of the knowledge here and there and having really knowledge out of one data source, which is the foundation of our project that we're presenting here. It is systematic knowledge, and that systematic knowledge comes out of the GfK Cross-Media Link panel. This is a panel of 16,000 users in Germany that we constantly track over the course of their internet visits across different devices. And we see all the URLs they visit, we see all the apps that they visit out of one single data source. The results of that project, I would love to give you a bit of more insights in a short video that we will show now. So let's get a glimpse into what we do publish in the product that in the book that has just recently been released.
So, welcome to the standard that from now on will allow you to compare the significance of different players, different offers, different activities, different devices, and to get a holistic understanding of the entirety of what's going on in the digital world. And when you talk to people about it, the first thing that they ask you is, what are the big players? What are the biggest offers? Do you have a ranking? So we love rankings, and so also here we can today show the ranking. And it's also a quite entertaining ranking because most people think that Google and Facebook are number 1 and 2, and neither is either 1 or 2. And it's quite surprising for many, even experts, to see YouTube is the number 1 with 13% of the entire duration. And there's plenty of more surprises in this. So for instance, for me, it was a surprise to learn that WhatsApp has a share of usage, a share of time spent that's nearly on the same level as Facebook. Or look in the lower left corner where you see Apple. Apple here, the number 2. And many people don't have it on the radar. And there's also a clear explanation why that is the case. Because if you look at this slide, you will see here Apple rank 2, but you will see the net reach of Apple is very low, comparably. It's only 44%. So I can tell you, if we had done a ranking based on net reach, Apple wouldn't even have appeared in the top 20. And that is exactly the problem. Because if you look at rankings which are published outside, they will be based on net reach because that's the easiest KPI to grasp. But Apple is able to overcompensate the lack of net reach with its super high stickiness. So the ecosystem of the Apple services are able to attract so much attention, so much duration, that then it is actually able to compensate this. So in the overall picture, total duration, it is on rank 2.
And next to this single player's view in digital media, we have a comprehensive view of digital media as well, across different activities, because all those different web pages, all those different apps are classified into activities. And we see that those activities are, of course, multifold compared to classic media. Don't fall into the net reach trap. And we see that here in this diagram that all activities in the internet that we're showing here are, of course, relevant if you just focus on net reach. Because if you consider your own behavior in the internet, consuming digital media, you at least once, twice, multiple times in a month use one of those categories. But this picture changes if we step into our core KPI that we're having insights of this publication, focusing on the total duration of those category-specific usage. And with that, we see that most of the time spent in the internet is on media on demand, is on gaming, is on communication, and social networking. So there is a clear differentiation in those touch points in the engagement level of the consumers. And we can even drill down deeper a bit and now have those categories in a device-specific view. And with that, you see that consumers pick their battles, so to say, what device to use for what activity they do in the internet. And now zooming into one category, zooming into the activity of social media, we can then zoom into it one and define the engagement level, the relevance of those different players inside of that activity. With that respect, social media here, which is of course dominated a lot by Facebook, as you see.
So let's come back to this touchpoint overview, which I love because such an overview or similar overviews are distributed by the thousands in marketing departments and agencies. And there's one fact that is actually surprising, because in all of those overviews, you will see the single bubbles of these touch points. They always have the same size. So you would get the impression that they all have the same significance. And that is exactly where you see how important it is to have a holistic standard against which you can measure every single digital media, every single offer, and calculate the relative significance. And we did this just for fun on the example of these touch points, and you will see that the picture changes drastically. So here you see the size of the bubbles relative to their significance in terms of usage time. And if you think about marketeers who translate all their assets into the different channels, if I was a marketeer, I would change certain things immediately. I would stop thinking even about writing a blog. Blogs in this overview, they more or less don't exist. I would deprioritize email, for instance, but also look at the website bubble. This website bubble is not your website. It's all brand websites out there accumulated. So the very small size of this bubble also shows how hard it is for brands and manufacturers to even compete in the hyper-competitive landscape of digital media and to gain attention here. So it might be also an approach to deprioritize that. You could, for instance, focus on video on demand, social media, and directly link to e-commerce platforms if you look at such analyses.
And our key conclusion here that we draw is we need to reconsider the way that we look at digital media. We as marketeers, we become a lot of niche players, experts in very limited areas, in very focused areas, but sometimes we need to zoom out, and that is what our analysis shows. And it's even getting a bit worse with the rise of the dashboards that we see in the markets, management by dashboards. Dashboards are great to reduce the complexity, and that's the reason why we like them. it's a narrow window into core KPIs that we use for our management. But sometimes it is necessary to zoom out a bit and understand a bit the reason why. Why is that figure as it is, to have the holistic and a bigger picture in everything that we do interpret. So what is large, what is not enough, etc. So it's the invitation to leave that tunnel that we're just restricted with 80 kilometers per hour, so we can drive faster and as well in a secured way. With that, feel invited and complement the dashboard-based view into a broader picture with this project and the book that we have released for a more holistic perspective into digital media. Thanks a lot for your attention. Please visit our website, atlas-der-digitalen-Welt.de, and learn a bit more about the insights and the approaches that we have taken here. Thanks a lot for your attention.